Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, Lower Broad Hockey, and Emma's dog, Minka Fitzpatrick. What's up, Emma?
Yeah, I guess Minka really wanted to be part of the show today. If you're watching on YouTube, which you should be, Minka just wanted to come say hello. She's has a lot of opinions. She's not very vocal about them, but has a lot of feelings about Predators hockey right now.
We are all in the feelings right now, Emma. That is for sure. Hope everybody's having a wonderful and amazing, happy Thanksgiving, of course. Have a great Thanksgiving, regardless of what happens on Wednesday night, Friday night, or Saturday night. If you are a Nashville Predators fan, Kevin, what's going on? That's right. Excited to be here at the fount of Emma's wisdom. You're building a brand, Emma. You're building a brand. More to explore. Get you a dog that looks at you like that. There you go.
She only looks at me like that because I feed her. That's it.
I hate to break it to everyone who loves dogs. I am a dog person as well. I'm pretty sure the only reason they love us over thousands of years of evolution is because we give them food. That's it. Yeah. That's it. It's warm inside. It's not cold. It's not raining, and there's food.
But she would trade me for a tennis ball in a heartbeat, just so everyone knows. Like, don't let her fool you. She knows how to play it up for the camera. But
when my daughters and wife picked out our newest pup in June, after our old pup, we had to put him down in February. We never imagined being a golden doodle, like he's a golden doodle mutt mix, and we never imagined ourselves being that. But I didn't realize. I think I knew this, but I didn't realize it in like practice, that the dog will never not chase the ball. It will never not go get the thing that ran by.
So mine's not a retriever, but I made the mistake of taking her to watch my friends play pickleball last week, and it was a disaster because just whining, wanting to chase the ball constantly. Like I thought she would enjoy being around people. I was so wrong. She was so distressed because she had to chase the ball.
Well, dogs are great. Predators hockey, not so much. So hope everybody's having a great Thanksgiving. One of the things I wanted to do today, because I know a lot of you on the message board and in general I'm assuming as fans, you're going through this sort of mental gymnastics of like, how did we get here? And we'll break down the injury to Jeremy Lauzon. We'll break down the trade of Philip Tomasino. We will talk about the game against the Devils, why this team is incapable of stacking wins one after the other. We're going to do a lot of stuff. But one of the things I wanted to do today, sort of, I felt this way coming into the show, even before the New Jersey game on Monday, Emma, which is there's a lot of conversation around the summer strategy and like what the Predators actually did to get us here. Most everybody rave reviews, fans, media, everybody, experts around the league. It was a lot of like, way to go, Barry Trotz. Good job building a chance to win, et cetera, et cetera. Not many people were critical. So you can, if you want to sit up in your chair or put your hand up now and say, I think this was the wrong move, that's fine. But you have to show us the receipts if you were saying that back in July 1st. So this isn't going to be a conversation about rehashing what Barry Trotz did or didn't do. What I wanted to do, Emma, was let's say, hypothetically, they had gone down a totally different path and gone the other way that many of you now think that maybe we wish they should have done, hypothetically, still early season. But I wanted to go through and actually look at what that would have looked like from a roster standpoint, from a decision-making standpoint, and then ultimately what then the team would have been asking the fans to do after that. And I think that's a really critical piece to the entire thing, which is we can talk about the strategy of some of the roster moves going opposite of competing, right? Rebuilding. But then what are you actually asking the fans to do for you as an organization following that? So we'll get to that a little bit later on. However, Sinkers Beverages, if you watch Predators hockey and you need a drink, Sinkers Beverages, that's it. They have drinks. They have whatever it is that's your beverage of choice. They have it.
For those of us who are required to watch the Predators and wish we could drink while doing so, Sinkers Beverages.
Eddie says they're incapable of stacking wins because they suck. More to explore, says cheers. Here we go, Jeff. Good morning, fellow battered Preds fans. And is your hat from Sinkers, says Kevin. Yes, it is. That is a Sinkers logo, 1985, which technically makes it younger than me. has been serving the East Nashville community since 1985. That means their 40th anniversary is coming up next year. They are a 4-time liquor store of the year. So go check them out. Great swag, really good swag. Also, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue has really good swag as well. So go check them out. I hope you ordered your Thanksgiving meal because you can't do that anymore. In fact, they're closed until Saturday. But if you need a break before the game against your former coach on Saturday and you want to stuff your face with award-winning brisket on Saturday or Sunday, get a break from the in-laws, whatever it is you may be doing, head over to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Elite brisket from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Back open. They're closed this week. Back open again on Saturday and Sunday. So again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Do you think you can guess what the let's see what the rankings of alcohol sales are at Sinkers? Do you think you can tell me what categories are 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5? Like, do you think you could do that?
Like overall in general?
What do they sell the most of? Like what category so here's an example. Not a category, but Tito's, I think, is the number 1 liquor in the country in terms of total sales, which is amazing considering where they've come from. But do you know what the number 1 category is of sales at a place like Sinkers Beverages in a liquor store in Nashville? Do you have a guess?
Well, given that it's Nashville, I'm gonna go whiskey.
Whiskey, beer, wine. That's a good. So yes, whiskey / bourbon is number 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, and that's where you lose me because I don't like either of those, but I do like alcohol in many other forms.
That's a shame. What about a cocktail, like a bourbon cocktail, old fashioned at the bar? Nothing.
Nope.
Damn.
I've tried. I've wanted to like it, but
okay. All right. Well. Okay. All right. Number 2 is tequila.
That I could get on board with.
Number 2 is tequila, which I was surprised by when I was talking to the folks at Sinkers. And I think number 3 is vodka, I believe. And then you go wine, and then beer, I think is the next one. So there you go.
That makes sense because you can get wine and beer at a grocery store, I guess. But
that's true. Yeah. That's true. Lots of other places to get beer. With the number of stops on the way home. But anyway, you should go to Sinkers to get your beer because they have a craft beer, award-winning craft beer fridge, the number 1 craft beer retailer in the city. Truly, the number 1. Is Sinkers Beverages. Huge walk-in fridge, all the good local breweries, East Nashville Beer Works, Bearded Iris, Tennessee Brew Works, Jackalope, you name it, they've got them, and they're here, and they're available at Sinkers Beverages. Okay. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, by the way, also good swag. They have really good hats as well. Good T-shirts and stuff there. Okay, so I guess, Emma, sure, Preds hockey. So they...
I want to keep talking about tequila.
I know, it's way more fun. So I guess I do have to ask, since we haven't been on the air since the Winnipeg game, it was truly the best game that they've probably played the entire year. There were some lineup changes. We had the little fight, of course, on Friday, which, as Adam said on the Monday episode, there's a non-zero chance that Michael McCarron is out because of Luke Evangelistas. Little dust up with him. So they... And Adam posted this in the Lower Broad Hockey chat room. Please go sign up if you want to support the cause there. They beat Colorado 5-2. They come back and lose 3-0 to the Kings. They beat Utah 4-0. They come back and lose 3-2 to Colorado. Although they played well in that Colorado game, they beat Vancouver 5-3. They go back and they come back the very next game and they lose 3-0 to Seattle. They beat Winnipeg 4-1. They then fall to New Jersey 5-2. Before we get into the specifics of either of the two games, this is the problem. Steven Stamkos said it after the game on Saturday. We've got to make it count for more than just one night. That did not happen. And here's the thing that stands out to me looking at that list, Emma, is it's not just that they lost games, but you could argue that the Kings 3-0 loss and the Seattle Kraken 3-0 loss and the New Jersey game last night are the 3 worst games they've played all year. It's not just that they come back and they lose. It's they come back and they're awful. And that is the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of fans would not feel this way, but I personally do, that I would feel better about any of those games that you just mentioned if the effort had been there. It's like you mentioned the Colorado game. They lost, but they looked good. They looked good in that game overall. So like even if something like that had happened against New Jersey or against LA or against Seattle, I would have been able to live with that. But the fact that they are just coming off, their best performances of the season straight into their worst, it's like, that's kind of why you said Stamkos talked about it. I mean, that locker room after the Winnipeg win was really not as celebratory as one might expect after you've just beaten the best team in the NHL. And that's the thing, is like they all realize, they're very aware of where they are right now. And so if you're aware of it, I mean, maybe it's human nature. I don't know. You kind of rest on your laurels a little bit. Not that you have a lot of laurels to rest on, but I mean, I don't know if they're still just believing in their own hype a little bit too much. Like after one game, it's like, oh, we're back. I mean, they're not saying that outwardly, obviously, because that would be stupid, but maybe they feel that way. I really don't know.
It's hard to believe that, Emma. Like, it's hard to believe. Like, I've you've been around them enough more than I have, but I've been around them enough to, like, these professional athletes, they don't do that kind of thing. They're not like, oh yeah, we're back. Like, that's not what it is. They buckle down to grind out the next one, and it just doesn't work. And again, the 3-0, like we started the show last week on Wednesday with how important the Seattle game was going to be. We didn't want to put too much on one game, but man, it's important to show what you can do. And they go out and play a terrible hockey game. They come back, and actually this past week is sort of the season, which is you play a terrible hockey game, you come back against a mediocre team, if not an out of the playoffs kind of average team. Then you come back at home and you play a brilliant hockey game where it's the best 5-on-5 you've looked the entire year against the best team in the league. And this team has gotten up for good teams. Like, they've played well against Colorado and Boston and Edmonton, although I guess Boston is not a good team.
They played well against Washington, even though they lost. But yeah,
and I thought Boston, I guess, was going to be good, but that was that.
So did everyone else.
Yeah, it turned out to be different. And then they come back and where it's like, again, New Jersey is young and talented and fast and good, but that is what you're trying to beat almost every night, especially in the playoffs. And you weren't competitive really at all. I know you got the 1-0 lead and sort of, but like they're totally outskated in that game for the most part. And I think that's the microcosm of the whole season is, you lose to an average team, you beat a great one, and then you get smoked by a good one, and that's it. Like, you're 1-2, and that's every week, rinse and repeat, and it's not getting any better right now.
No, it's not. And I understand if you're running out of patience, running out of answers. I mean, I am too. It's frustrating to see this team that came in with these expectations performing like this. But to your earlier point, though, Braden, I think that, no one back, yes, of course, hindsight's 2020, but no one back in July was saying, Barry Trotz, this was a mistake. Like, this didn't look good. And so it's like, that's honestly why it's so frustrating right now. I mean, losing sucks regardless, but it's different when it's, in circumstances like this.
And it feels like we kind of mentioned this on Monday's episode yesterday, that this week is sort of going to define the season. Thanksgiving is sort of a benchmark where a lot of teams and fans and media do sort of a reevaluation of where you're at. You're kind of at that 22, 23, 24 game mark. You're over a quarter of the season, and you're sort of looking to make a move in the standings. I think it's like 15 teams have made the playoffs, being out of the playoffs at Thanksgiving in the last few years. Adam's done that stat a lot on the show, and the Preds actually have done it twice in the last couple of years. And there's nothing about this team that says that's going to happen. I still believe that they will go on some streaks, and I think somebody in the chat on Lower Broad was like, yeah, they'll probably go on a hot streak at the end of the year and end up with the 13th pick in the draft. And it's like, that's kind of what you don't want right now. Is that you need it to be all in or bad. Right now, I think they're third in the lottery stats for the first pick in the draft, which I cannot believe is a sentence I'm putting on this show in November. But it feels like you got, and because we're going to talk about Askarov, of course, a little bit later on. But I think when you have Askarov getting his first career point and his first career win, and you're going to have a week that ends going up against the coach who got fired for Andrew Brunette, who's doing well and is a Jack Adams sort of top 5-ish candidate, according to Emma Lingan, in our pre-show conversation. And, you have the look, right? And now you've traded away Tomasino. So now you've traded away Cody Glass and Philip Tomasino, two high-level players that were supposed to be, first-round picks that were supposed to be evaluated and a big part of the youth movement. I know they didn't draft Glass. Jeremy Lauzon gets hurt. You have a power play for 5 minutes down 2 with a chance to get back in the game in the last 7 minutes of the game. UC Saros gets pulled. All of this, it's just snowballing into what feels like a week that we are going to look back on and say, man, that was the week that either broke them or the week that created them. I don't know what's going to happen, but it does feel like this week is now even more important than I expected.
Yes, but also it feels like that's not the first time that we've said this already this year, and it's November. So, I mean, we said that about the Seattle game too. It's like not that one game is going to make or break the season, but it's like, oh, this is going to tell us a lot. And we thought it did. And then they came back and smoked Winnipeg. And it's like, oh, well. And now we're back to, well, this week or this handful of games is going to tell us a lot. And I still, like, I don't know how much you can know about a team in November, but I think, you know, I don't know. It's just, I still, and we talked about this before the show, I still am not fully sold on this just being a complete disaster of a season. It has been a disaster of a first quarter. I will not deny that. But
so the season's not lost, as the title says.
Yeah. The season is not lost. I don't think. It doesn't mean that so let me just be clear. In saying that, I am not guaranteeing, I'm not sitting here saying, mark my words, everybody, they're going to come back and go on a run and make the playoffs.
That makes for good radio content. That makes for good podcasting.
I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I am saying that it is still possible. So
the obligatory, so you're saying there's a chance is what's happening here.
Yes.
Josh says this level of inconsistency is something you'd expect from a young team, not one of the most veteran teams in the league. Agreed. Name a good first round pick or trade in the last 5 years. That will tell you everything you need to know. We tried to buy our way out of bad drafting trades, buyouts. It's not working, period. Now, I will say, and this will be a part of our conversation later, both Svechkov and LaRue, 2 first-round picks, same draft class, playing on the team last night. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing that is happening. And otherwise, the previous drafts before that is all, it's trade a first-round pick. It's Dante Fabro, trade a first-round pick for Ryan Hartman. It's Philip Tomasino. You can go down the list. I don't have all of them off the top of my head, but like none of them are on the team. Askarov, I think, was in there as well in the last 5 drafts, but none of them are on the team anymore. And that's a problem. And we've talked a lot about that, so we don't need to necessarily rehash. Let's see. Kevin says back in July, we thought Novik was going to be and allowed to be a second line center. There you go. Cody says call a spade, third worst team in the league. They aren't pulling a Blues going last to Cup winners. This team just isn't good. Here's what I will say. I agree with you, Emma. I don't think the season's not lost. Is the upside of the season lost? Maybe. I think Western Conference Final, second round of the playoffs, I think that kind of stuff is now, really, really hard to accomplish. I think getting to the playoffs is now sort of a reestablished goal. I'm not saying that's the right goal based on the preseason expectations, but now if you're looking at where they are, the hole they've dug themselves into, the best they can do is probably make it to the playoffs. I think that's possible. I think it's still absolutely possible with this many veterans and UC Saros and Roman Yossi and Forsberg and et cetera. But I do think that if we get, so the Blues is a good reference here. If we get to the point, because I'm not there with firing Andrew Burnett. I'm just not. I'm a conservative coach, evaluator. I will always sort of err on the side of patience. That's just how I function. I understand not everybody's like that. But I think if you get to the point where I think they fired Mike Yao on November 19th, I think, so actually earlier than this, they were still last place in like mid-January. Like they were still in like the worst record in the NHL. So the turnaround for St. Louis, that 2019 Cup team, did not actually happen until months later. And so if we get to middle of January and this team is still the worst team in the NHL or behind Chicago in the Central Division standings, we do need to have a more serious conversation about Andrew Burnett's future. That's just the facts.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, I'm not, and I get accused of this a lot, which is annoying because I feel the need once again. How many times have I done this on the show, Braden, where I've had to issue a PSA and remind people that I am not employed by the Nashville Predators? I don't owe them anything. I am not required to say nice things about them. But I agree with you that Andrew Burnett his job is not in danger right now. That doesn't mean that it won't ever be. And I don't think he's going to die on that bench. Like I'm just saying that right now it's too easy.
That's morbid.
it's low hanging fruit right now to say, like, look, we have this great team that, was assembled and it was supposed to be really good. It's not working. It's the coach. It might be, but it's too early to say that right now. And honestly, if you fire him now, who do you bring in? Honestly. And so I think that it's looking at this, I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things that we may need to have that conversation down the road, but it's not right now.
So last year they were 5-10. I just want to double check this. They were 5-10 on November 14th. That is when they went on the 6-game winning streak that got them to above 500 to 11-10, which was on Tuesday against Pittsburgh on Tuesday, November 28th. That's 2 days from now. They were above 500 at this time last year. And that's not happening right now because they need at least 2 more weeks to do that. And that's where we're already to the point where, like, it was one thing to compare it to last year and say, look, this happened last year. It's all good. It's okay. Here's what's going on. They're actually ahead of where they were based on point total, et cetera, et cetera. Not anymore. They're now behind the pace from last year because at this time last year, they had just gone on a 2-week stretch where they won every game. And that did not happen this year. Michael, good to see you in the comments, MG. I hope you're doing well. You don't have to take shots at Stillman, even from the comment section, okay? Has more staying power than a Preds first-round pick. There you go. I like that. It's funny. but that's not going to – focusing on Stillman is not going to be good for your health, Michael, okay? All right, just hang on. Cody says, tired of winning the offseason. I want to win the draft. I think that's fair. All right, so what do you make of the Tomasino trade? And then we'll get into the game itself because there's not a lot to break down on the game against New Jersey. But what do you make of the Tomasino trade? They get him for a 4th-round pick. Barry Trotz has basically said, look, we weren't getting many calls on him, and it was clear that he had kind of had run its course, hadn't really got the the production that the coaching staff wanted, didn't really fit into the plan, and Tomasino gets moved for a 4th-rounder. I guess it's the right move. I don't know. We'll get to what a total rebuild would have looked like. I imagine Philip Tomasino might have been a bigger part of that. I don't know, but not anymore. Not anymore.
So, first of all, because I've seen a lot of different, very rational and well thought out takes, as one tends to see on hockey Twitter.
Hockey blue sky is nice. It's nice and calm. The humidity's down. Skies are blue and clear. Come on over. At Braden Gall, blue sky.
Here's my thing. If you are surprised just at the very fact that Tomasino was traded, I don't know how to help you because clearly you have not been paying attention for the last 2 years. He has, whatever this issue is, he has fallen out of favor with the organization. And I don't mean that there's some kind of, falling out or anything like that. It's just for whatever reason, he has fallen out of favor. And that has now spanned 2 general managers and 2 head coaches. So when that happens, it kind of sets off an alarm in your head, like, hey, this guy probably isn't it. And we said this, at least I said it over the summer. I thought, I'm surprised it took them this long to trade him, quite frankly. I didn't think he would still be here. And I think with how late they signed him to a contract this year, I don't think they thought he would still be here either. And so they signed him, they kept him. He's got 1 assist through 11 games. They're finally able to get something done. And you know what? He's making less than $1 million. That's a contract that's easy to move. Yeah. And they get something for him. It's not like a Dante Fabro situation where $2.5 million is going to be damn near impossible to get off the books at this point in the season. So if you're looking to get rid of him now, and I've seen people upset, it's like, well, how does, getting rid of him for a bucket of pucks, which, let's be honest, at least they got rid of him for something. But how is getting rid of him now helping the team? To that, I say him being on the bench isn't helping the team either. And that's where he was going to be. It or not, agree or disagree, that's where he was going to be.
And they gave him more chances this year than Fabro. Which is strange to even say out loud. Fabro, I think, got 6 games, and so he played in 11. it's funny. I was looking at the press release and I'm like, oh, 4th round pick. Okay, that's not terrible. All right, it's not a terrible. And then I looked at it and they were like, oh, they have 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, and an extra 4th now in the draft. And I was like, wait a second, they got more than that. And then I realized I had to go back and read the first sentence. 2027 draft pick. It's a 2027 draft pick, so that doesn't exactly help anything at any point anytime soon. But he's got a chance to go do something else. Him and Cody Glass. I don't know. Michael says, isn't laughter the best medicine? At this point of the season, I totally agree, MG. Askarov looked pretty great last night, which admittedly stung a little bit. We'll see. And Josh says, I'm curious how our handling of young players compares to other organizations. Do we give them enough chances to succeed when they come up? That is going to be a big part of our conversation in just a minute, which is actually coming up here very soon, because I have one more positive. I have one, actually the only positive from the New Jersey game. My favorite part, I want to see if you can guess my favorite part of the entire game on Monday night, in the Predators largely getting boat raced by a faster, younger, more talented, better, more interesting, and more fun to watch hockey team in the New Jersey Devils. Do you have any idea?
I don't. I really don't.
Anthony Del Gaizo is being interviewed. Mark Del Gaizo's brother. And apparently, you got all the Jersey boys, the whole Del Gaizo clan is there and they're hanging out. Great to see. Love to see it. Anthony Del Gaizo, in the middle of the interview, starts talking about DraftKings.
Yes, I noticed that too. I love that.
He mentions DraftKings, and it's like the last sentence of the interview, because he's like, oh, I got to bet on my brother or blah, 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 whatever, And immediately when they cut back, Willie Donick immediately says, he's immediately like, yeah, and you can get those bets on FanDuel as well.
I did notice that. I was like, ugh.
I was dying laughing, because it's not a big deal. And the talent, like when I was doing the show on 102.5, I never cared about this stuff. Like if people mentioned the show on 104.5 or one of our competitors on another station, like people know this stuff exists. And I always thought like it's not a big deal to mention a competitor on the show or whatever. I never mentioned that, but the people who are running those things, the marketing directors and the people that are in charge of things and program directors and station directors and general managers and stuff, they all think that stuff is so effing serious and they hate it. So like Willie Donick and C-Mace, I guarantee you could not care less that it happened. In fact, they probably laughed hard about it at the end of the game. But he immediately felt obligated to say something, because he knows he works for the Predators that are on the FanDuel Sports Network.
And he knows that they're going to get reamed out if they don't say something, which is stupid, but they will.
Well, and we would we always thought, so when we were on in the mornings, when me and Fitzy were on in the mornings, we were going up against Kevin Ingram, Mark Howard, and Frank Wycheck for a big chunk of time. And Withrow and Hutton were friends of mine, and Kaharski now on the network. We were all pretty close friends, and so we would always kind of have a friendly rivalry. And we thought it would be good to talk shit about each other back and forth. Like build a rivalry is good for the station on the air. And our bosses were always like, don't do that. Let's not do that. let's not do that. And I'm like, why? It's fun. People like it. We're all human beings. Like, I just thought it was great because he was in his feelings. Anthony was having a great time celebrating his brother and watching the game and with all of his family. And he's like, oh, I wish I could get a bet on DraftKings. And I can hear the from the booth. I died laughing. Maybe that's a media thing that only you and I notice. But
no, I noticed that immediately and thought it was so funny how quickly Willie just immediately, yes, and FanDuel as well.
Oh, thank you, Coach Donick. Thank you. If Cody's talking about my old show with Fitzy, God bless you, Cody, man. Thank you for supporting the old show. That was the Cup year. I mean, that was the year of the Cup of our Lord Stanley Cup. Is what happened. We were on there from 16 to 17, a little bit more 17, and that was it. About a year and a half with me and Fitzy, and then the new show showed up. Okay. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. If you want great award-winning meats and side items, go to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. It's right there. It's in Madison technically, but it's right there off Briley Parkway. Very accessible from anywhere in the city. You can get there in 10 minutes from downtown. You can get there from anywhere because it's super, super accessible, right by the interstate. And award-winning brisket, Black Hawk Farms Wagyu beef brisket. It is exceptional. I can't wait to have some on Thanksgiving. I got my order in. And, of course, they'll be back open on Saturday and Sunday. And Sinkers Beverages. And this is absolutely what you need to do. And I'm going to do it actually tomorrow. I got the list from the wife. Go run around, and when you have to pick up a bunch of stuff for your holiday weekend, go to Sinker's Beverages, Bluegrass Beverages. If you are in Hendersonville, that's their sister store. Over 50 years of serving that community. You're gonna need nice wines. You're gonna need probably some tequila in Emma's case, or bourbon in my case, for the Preds game on Friday evening against Tampa Bay, and then Saturday against Minnesota. You're gonna need that stuff. So you might as well go pick it up and have it in the house for the weekend. They've got huge selection of bourbon, great allocations. If you sign up for the In Crowd, which is their rewards program, this is the time of year where they'll send you a list and be like, hey, tell us what you want from the allocation cart. You know what I mean? Like, we got the cage down there. Tell us what you want. If you want some good stuff, this is your time to get it. But you got to be a loyal customer. So sign up for the In Crowd. Now's your time to do it. So Sinker's Beverages, sign up for the In Crowd. Shotgun Willie's, both award-winning, both locally owned, both supporters of the Nashville Predators. So make sure you go support them, please, please, please. Okay. Anything else from the games? Because I want to do this rebuild exercise here, because I want to see. I think I was already planning on doing this, and then Askarov gets his first win last night, and it just sort of puts the whole thing puts a whole bow on it. Anything else you want to jump on here? Philadelphia on Wednesday, Tampa on Friday, 2 home games, then Minnesota Saturday. I mean, basically you need 6 points to even.
Well, before we talk about that, and you're probably going to yell at me because I know that we're getting to this shortly, but you bring up the Askarov thing, and I'm sorry, but anyone who thinks that trading Askarov was the problem, it's not the problem. UC Saros last night, notwithstanding against New Jersey, UC Saros has been the best part of this Predators season, and he is someone who notoriously has slow starts. So that's all I will say. I'm still not on the regret having Askarov right now would change nothing.
Why would I be mad at you for that?
Well, because you're going to be like, oh, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
No, I think that's a different conversation. I think that's a fair thing to say. Like, because I agree. And Go Dog 18 agrees with you. Agree completely, Emma. That's the wisdom she imparts on everyone.
Right.
Millsaps Jeff asked a great question. Your example for Burnett, they go through training camp and decide that Novak is the guy for 2C, has a great camp. How long did that last before he got pulled and inserted? I like Snossus as for Sissons, I think is what that's supposed to be.
It's the nod to the Fanatics mix up where because Fanatics is terrible, and it was a meme for a while. There was like a jersey that someone ordered a jersey, and it was a Sissons jersey, but it came and it said Snossus on the back.
Oh, how did I not know that? I feel very dumb right now.
That predated my time covering the Predators, and I still know about it. So
that would have been when I was on Twitter, so I should have seen it then. But yeah, I think it was 5 minutes is the answer to your question, Jeff. I think it was like a 5-minute part of the like 5 minutes of ice time, and then I think he like 2 or 3 shifts, and I think he was out of the starting lineup. So look, this is more of an academic exercise, but I think it is good to illuminate a lot of thinking right now around this team, which is sort of like, why did we do this, right? And how did we get here? Because I think, to your point, the one thing, like, UC Saros has been the best part of this team, almost full stop. Like, Philip Forsberg, unbelievable goal again, and he's sort of doing everything by himself. So, Roman Yossi's, scoring a couple of goals on Saturday actually gets him on a much more, like, normal career trajectory for scoring, but even Yossi's had a bad start to the year relative to his own sort of elite Norris level production. First and foremost, nobody was critical of the moves when it really happened. Now, was there somebody out there saying like, hey, I don't know if Stamkos fits into this system? I'm sure that was said by somebody. I need a receipt. I'm talking about the overarching strategy, which is to make this team better, to try to make them better, and to try to go compete and win a championship. One of the major complaints is, why doesn't this team try hard to compete for a championship? Well, that is literally what they did by spending over $100 million on July 1st. But I want us to sort of go rewind all of that, and not in a way that we evaluate each one of the moves and each one of the strategies, but it's more about, let's say they get rid of Ekholm, they get rid of Tanner Jeannot, they do that whole sell-off, right? They do that whole thing. They keep selling pieces. They fire John Hines. They bring in Andrew Burnett, and they have the season they have last year, and we get to sort of March when they re-sign Dante Fabro. That's sort of the one I want to start with, because I actually think that if we were going to do a total tear down and rebuild and do another offseason of the previous offseason, I actually think re-signing Fabro was probably the right thing to do, to have a young defenseman as a part of the core. You want to trade away veterans. So I want to start with that, Emma. Is Fabro the starting point, or is it the end of the season last year, the Vancouver series, where you kind of start with off-season moves if you say, let's go through the exercise of what a rebuild would have actually looked like last year?
It's hard to say, because I think looking at the Fabro thing, like you said, that happened in March, and that was at that point they still didn't know if they were a playoff team, really. Like, it's like they could be, but maybe not. I don't know. But I would say yes, start there, because even if they, last year they weren't supposed to be, theoretically, they were not supposed to be a playoff team anyway. So you should have been working with the future in mind regardless. So yes, I would say start there.
Okay. We can kind of work through all these decisions, but I actually think re-signing Fabro would have been one of the right moves. If I was doing a rebuild, I think I would have said, yes, re-sign him, maybe for more than just the 1 year. Maybe not. Maybe 1 year is fine. But I think that's where you start, and you have him under contract to be a top 4 defenseman. Then let's get to the end of the season. I do think there was, obviously at this point, 22 games in or whatever, it was some fool's gold the entire season of last year, until they changed that narrative this year. You have to look at last year and say, wasn't necessarily it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't actual progress, unless there's actual progress this year, which there has not been so far. My question is, let's start with the goaltending because UC Saros is looking for a new contract at this time. You've got Askarov, who kind of gets pulled in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs. You've got Kevin Lankinen, who wants to be a starting goaltender. Here's where I think you could start this conversation. Trading UC Saros, signing Kevin Lankinen to be your starting goaltender, and telling Askarov you will be the backup and you're going to compete for playing time and you're probably going to get a split. And by the end of the year, maybe you're the guy. But I think if you're going to do a full-on rebuild and you're going to go back and relive the entire summer, I think that's where you start and you do something drastically different, because UC Saros is too good to rebuild around. He's going to win you too many games. Is that the right? If you were doing a rebuild, Emma, is that the right first piece move?
Yes, because I think that's where this whole send it, full send, we're going to compete. And I've said this many times before, that starts with Saros. If you don't sign Saros, you're not getting Stamkos, you're not getting Marchessault, you're not getting Shea. And I know that doesn't mean as much now as it would have a few months ago, but I think that Saros was the linchpin in this entire thing. Because like you said, he's too good. He's too good to rebuild around. And so it's like, all right, well, I said this before, even before he signed an extension, I was like, whatever happens with Saros is going to be the first domino that determines what else happens with this team. And they didn't have a direction. They didn't have one. It was like, we're not really sure. We're going to stay in the middle. And I give Barry Trotz credit for that. He had to pick a direction, and he picked one. Right now, it doesn't look good, but that doesn't mean that it was the wrong direction.
Well, again, this is not about going back and litigating the right and wrong of the decisions. I want to, let's say Barry Trotz picks the direction and it's the other one. Because part of the reason I wanted to do this, Emma, was I hear a lot of folks, and granted, I understand why we're doing this, because now we're second guessing the strategy. And I'm not even wanting to do that necessarily. I just want to say, all right, to those who are saying, man, I wish we would have done this, or maybe we should sell some pieces, or maybe we should go into a rebuild, or, hey, we shouldn't have re-signed Saros. All fair questions to ask today, but no one was really asking them then. But I wanted to go through this exercise and say, all right, what does it look like if they actually had done the other thing, right? Like if Barry Trotz does the other thing. I think Lankinen is your starter. I think Askarov is your backup, and Askarov by the end of the year is trying to fight to take over the starting spot. I think that's number one. I think Saros probably nets you something very large in return. Whatever that may be, it's probably a pretty nice, pretty big, heavy return. Maybe not as much as Trotz wanted. That's why he didn't go that direction. But ultimately, I think you get something pretty big for him. My next question is, which stars are going to be a part of this deep rebuild versus which stars are traded? I think Forsberg and Josi are kept for at least a year or two. Maybe they're traded later, or maybe you're asking Josi to waive some no movement stuff, whatever it might be. To me, it's Ryan O'Reilly, Gus Nyquist, maybe it's Jeremy Lauzon. I don't know, but I think you're moving pieces and you're deciding who to move and who to keep. And I'm curious, who do you move and who do you keep in that rebuild process?
Well, it's hard for me to look at it in that way, because I'm with you. I think Josi and Forsberg stay, just because knowing that organization and knowing the ins and outs, I cannot see them getting moved. Even and quite frankly, I think that was a big part of why they said no rebuild, no rebuild right now. And so I'm with you. I think Josi, Forsberg, also those contracts are going to be harder to move, of course, but I think they stay. I think O'Reilly, Nyquist, probably gone. I
mean, they let all the other veterans walk in free agency, right? They let Beauvillier and Zucker, and they let those guys. Maybe you re-sign Sherwood. I don't know. Maybe that's a guy you bring back because he's a body that can play. I do think it's O'Reilly and Nyquist are the big two that you move and could still get something in return for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the case. I think Lauzon is young enough to maybe build around as part of your pieces, but also he's a cheap defenseman, maybe you do trade him. I don't think you re-sign Alexander Carrier.
Nope.
I don't think you re-sign him. I don't think you trade Cody Glass in the summer, but we'll get to that. That's later on down the road. So I think you do re-sign Kiefer Sherwood. I think that's one of the ones that I'd be like, all right, bring him back, because you need 12 forwards. If you're going to go rebuild, you still need people to play, and you have a shit ton of cap space. Like, you're going to have a ton of cap space. So
I think you keep Sherwood. You still keep Jankowski.
Yep.
I think you still re-sign Tommy Novak.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, so you've now traded O'Reilly. You've traded UC Saros. You've traded O'Reilly. You've traded Nyquist. You've re-signed Fabro, and so you've not re-signed Carrier, and you've brought back Jankowski, Novak, and Sherwood. Okay, I'm on board. I think we're on the right place now. So then you get to free agency, and you do none of the things you did. This is an easy one. You are not signing Stamkos. You are not signing Shea. You are not signing Marcia Show, and you are still trading Ryan McDonough.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, with all of that, what do you actually do with all of the money? That's my only question in the rebuild that I struggled to answer. I think I know the path. I think I know how this would unfold. I don't know what to do with all the extra money. That's
the thing, is like, you can't take it with you. Why are you stockpiling all this cap space and all this money if you're not going to use it? But I know that's not what we're talking about here.
But trade for really bad contracts that net you something in return. That's an option, right?
But what would that look like? Is that like trading for what? Patrick Laine? Like,
maybe. You are saying, give me a first or a second round pick and I'll take that $7 million garbage contract off your hands. That's ultimately what you do in a rebuild with cap space. Because if you spend it on good players, that's not going to help your rebuild, right?
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
I mean, the other, like, if there's some kind of whoever, I don't know, pick a guy, the Mark Jankowski or whoever has like an incredible season, and then you want to sign him to a longer contract. I don't know. But I just think that I know this is a totally separate argument about, whether they should or shouldn't have done this. That's not what I'm saying. I know. Yes.
There's a point. There is an absolute purpose and point to this academic exercise.
I know. I have to keep stopping myself. But I think that if they were going to keep all of that money, like you said, you can't go out and get, I'm seeing people in the comments saying like Zegras, Natchez, like those players are too good for this. Like, if you're going to really rebuild, I mean, maybe Zegras because he's so young.
Maybe Zegras. If you could find a 22-year-old that you could sign to like an 8-year contract, or I guess it'd be a 7-year contract.
Yeah.
I could see that being finding the other piece behind Forsberg and Josi, but you have to sell that person on, and we'll get to this, being bad for a while. That's what you got to sound. So I'm curious what you think the lineup looks like. Is it Forsberg, Novak, Tomasino on the top line? Like, what are we talking about?
Forsberg, Novak, Evangelista.
Maybe. Okay, I'm on board with that.
Line.
So then you got how about Parsonen, Svechkov, and Tomasino on the second line?
Yeah.
Does that sound right? And you got Cody Glass, Zach LaRue, Mark Jankowski on the third line?
Oh, wait. I think we forgot a key piece of this. A veteran that I know, and I know you agree with me on this, do not think should be traded, but I think he's a guy you get rid of in a
don't do
rebuild.
Don't move Snossens.
Colton Snossis is gone in this scenario because that's a movable contract. It's a movable contract, and you can get something for him.
I hear you. Okay.
So I just wanted to, yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. How about LaRue? The fourth line is the same. It's with McCarron in there. It's LaRue, McCarron, and Smith, even though I like Snossis in there with LaRue and
I do too, but in this scenario, I think that happens.
So who's on the line with, is it so it's Jankowski, Cody Glass, and then who on the right
Sherwood?
side? Okay. Yeah, I'm good with Sherwood. That's fine. That makes sense. Although you probably put Sherwood down back with the other guys where he was last year and then move LaRue up to the third line, which I'm fine with that. So there's your starting line.
That's a rebuilding team.
And then the defense core is probably, again, Yossi, Fabro, Lauzon, somebody else, Delgaizo. Ideally, Stasny's a part of this, for sure. And then any other young piece that quickly develops and has proven that they belong to this.
So have we gotten rid of he who shall not be named in this scenario?
I don't know. I mean, in a rebuild, it seems like he'd be a critical piece. That was rude. That was rude,
but accurate. Rude, but Minka agrees with you.
Hey, Minka.
What do you
Nod.
Yep. She's wagging her tail.
Patrick says, honestly, Saros has been the brightest spot for the team. But man, you can absolutely tell when Evangelista is not on the ice this year. Okay, there you go. Evangelista is a piece that you build around. Svechkov, LaRue, these are pieces you have to be able to build around moving forward. The point is, so now here's the signing. We just rattle off the forwards. The defense core is Delgaizo, Shen, probably Lauzon, Fabro, Yossi. Not all that different, which is maybe something we should be talking through. Like, defense was the problem, I thought, on the roster going into the season. Turns out the offense also sucks, but the defense was going to be a problem, I thought, and that was my biggest concern. And if you do a rebuild with this team, the only difference is there's no Alexander Carrier. That's probably that's part of the problem. And then your goaltending is Lingan and Askarov. So that brings us to, what does this do? If I'm not suggesting it's 9 years like Carolina or 7 years like Colorado, but if that's the lineup you're putting out there, and even add more pieces to it, again, Stasny, Kemmel, whoever else you want to add to it, add more of the young pieces, turn them loose, let them make all the mistakes they're supposed to make, let them play like when it was Arizona, when all those young players were playing for Arizona, now for Utah. Make it like Chicago. Look at what's his face? Why am I drawing a blank on Macklin Celebrini for San Jose? Clearly going to be a very good player, and a young guy out there going to make mistakes, and you're going to lose games because you have a lot of young players making mistakes. Kind of the point of the whole process we're going through here. I think it is so easy, Emma, for fans in this moment who are pissed off that the team is not good to say that we should have done all of that stuff that we just said. And sometimes I think plenty of you out there that are saying that are thinking through the actual calculus, which is, I want to build for a championship team down the road, and I am willing to suffer awful hockey for way more than 22 games to get there. I am curious how many people have thought through what that looks like in reality. And you're talking about probably minimum of 2, if not 3 or 4 seasons of completely meaningless hockey. And I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm not saying it wouldn't be the right strategy, whenever this opportunity arises in the future. But what I want fans and everyone to think through is, if you're pissed off right now because the team's bad, and it ain't your money they spent on these players in the offseason. They tried poorly so far, but they tried. Are you guys actually okay with, 3 straight 78-point seasons? 78 points and then 82 points and then 86 points. No chance at a playoff for 3 straight years. Losing records. Are you okay with 10,000 people in the stands? Like, are you okay with that? And if you answer you honestly can give to me is yes, then I'm okay with you going back and saying, man, I don't think we should have done this. But unless you aren't willing to put your own equity on the line and say, look, I'm willing to suffer for 3 years to win a championship, why not go for it? I don't know. That's where I'm at on this. That was the purpose of the exercise. Because if you tell me that Novak, Evangelista, Forsberg, Svechkov, Tomasino, Parsonen is the top 6, you're not going to win a lot of games.
And that's the thing is, like, I completely agree with you. And I think that there are people out there who will, in response to what you just said, I think people will say, yeah, I'd be willing to do that because it would all be for something. First of all, I call bullshit on that. I don't think you really mean that. I think you mean it, but I don't think you really do. And second of all, I think that there's no guarantee at the end of it either. I mean, there's never a guarantee anything, but like, you don't know. I mean, given the Predators draft history, can you really say that, yes, let's tank for the draft and let's get all these good picks? I mean, their draft history probably shouldn't tell you a lot. You probably shouldn't get excited about, oh, we can rebuild through the draft, because I mean, granted, they would have higher position, but still, I think that I agree with you. I think that it's easy to say now, oh, they shouldn't have done that. Yes, I would be willing. This sucks right now. So yes, I would be willing to suffer through 3, I would say honestly, probably 4 seasons of this. Like right now, what you're watching, I would be willing to suffer through that, because at the end, it'll be worth it. But you don't know that it'll be worth it at the end. You don't know.
So I don't know you guys in the comments will be able to tell me, like, who's the generational talent that goes number 1 in this draft, for example. I mean, I don't know who the name is. I think there is somebody near the top of it, but I don't study that stuff. It's not my thing. And I think Patrick raises the question here. Yes, I'm concerned that the picks won't translate at the end of the bad hockey as someone who quite literally just invested. I think that is ultimately the issue here. And Brandon says, how do you think the Chicago fans right now? Sorry, that's the wrong one. You guys are streaming a bunch of comments in, which is great. Brandon says, how do you think Chicago feels right now? Arguably, they're excited for their future. That was a lot of years of bad hockey to get to Connor Bedard and to draft some pieces. San Jose doing the same thing. Look at all the players for Utah that I think will eventually pay off for that team in particular. Again, Colorado, 7 years of not making the playoffs. You covered Carolina. How many years did they not make the playoffs before it finally starts to hit and starts to work? I think the key is with that lineup we just laid out, you give yourself a pretty good chance at the number 1 pick, which is the thing they've never had. They've never screwed up the number 1 pick. So you guys can talk about Poyle and Trotz and the GMs and the draft and all the problems, but like they never screwed up number 1 overall. They've never done that.
Well, and that's kind of why, I take a little bit of an issue with the whole, oh, Predators suck in the draft argument, because yes, I totally agree. It's bad optics, 100% bad optics that they keep letting these first round picks go. But they've all been for this exact reason that we've been talking about. They've all been late round picks. And so, it doesn't mean as much as like if you're letting a top 5 or even top 10 pick in the draft walk or go for, a 4th round pick in 2027, because they've never, that's the thing is like, I get it. The optics are bad, but I think that the argument doesn't hold as much water, because if you're looking at it that way and where they pick in the draft, and again, yes, it would be a lot more exciting if they were in a position to pick Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard, or I think it's James Higgins is the guy for next year.
That's who the name. I didn't even Kevin put that name in the chat. And I was like, I don't know. What is he talking about?
Oh yeah, no, that's the guy for next year. Yeah. And so I think that it's not like the Predators are letting guys like that go. And I just think that is, again, they are a product of circumstance. The circumstance is that they have never done this. They've never tanked. They have never committed. They have never played for the draft. And that's what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
So again, like you said, Carolina, Colorado, San Jose, Chicago, that's a lot of really, really bad hockey.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look as bad to those of us who aren't fans and aren't like living through it. It's just something we're kind of used to. Like, oh yeah, San Jose, that sucks. Like we're just used to it that way. But if you're a fan and you're living through that, it's what you're doing right now. I know people say that the fact that there were such high expectations around this team is what makes it worse right now. But I would argue that the feeling would still be the same, and it would be for longer.
A couple of things. A lot of you guys in the comments are sort of responding with the concern about that still wouldn't work, right? Like you go through the rebuild, you suffer bad hockey, you draft a bunch of high-level players, and it doesn't work. That's an argument to go for it with veterans in the summer like the Predators did, honestly. To me, I don't disagree with y'all's point on that. I actually think that's the argument to do what they did, which is to re-sign a proven commodity instead of go with a unproven, AHL goaltender. That is to sign Hall of Famers and Conn Smythe winners instead of asking, all your young players to fill these incredibly important roles. That's a reason to do what they did, not the other way around. And here's the ultimate plot twist in all of this. And maybe this is how we should end the show. Plot twist. Maybe Barry Trotz was doing this all on purpose. Maybe he signed all these guys to sell tickets and gain interest and also knew that they had a chance at the number 1 pick. Maybe that's what this was all about. Plot twist. Brandon says, currently, we have a pretty good chance at the number 1 pick. Maybe that was the plan all along.
Sure. Maybe that was the plan. I'm
kidding.
I know. But I think that, I don't know, all the people saying, well, if we're going to play bad hockey, I'd rather there be a purpose. No, you wouldn't. It's still going to feel the same. I'm just saying it's still going to feel the same, and it's going to be bad. And there's no guarantee. There is not necessarily a Connor Bedard at the end of this dark tunnel. You don't know that. And even Connor Bedard alone is not going to, lift you out of 10 years of bad hockey. I mean, it's going to take a while. And so that's why I say, like, you even saying 2 to 3 years of bad hockey, I think that's lowballing it. It's going to be more like 4 to 5 at least.
Trotz playing 5D chess by signing Steven Stamkos to draft James Higgins. I'm just saying, would be a hell of a plot twist.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Calculated.
So More to Explore says in about 3 or 4 years, we're doing a rebuild automatically anyway. So what are we talking about? I don't really understand that point.
No, you're not, because in 3 to 4 years, ideally is when your guys like your LaRues, your Kemmels, your Evangelistas, your Svechkovs are in their prime. So you're not doing a rebuild. That was the whole point of this entire strategy, was to sign these guys, try to win now, maximize UC Saros, maximize Yossi and Forsberg while they are in their prime. You do that now, but they were able to do it without leveraging any of their future. They didn't have to give up any blue chip prospects to do that. And so that it opens the window now, but it keeps the window open for longer. That does not stop being true just because this has not worked out the way it was intended to so far.
Yeah, it says, and he responds with name one Yossi or Forsberg we have coming up. Wait, that's not the point. I don't disagree with his point, but that's not the point. The point is there are 7 or 8 first-round picks that are supposed to be good, and if you do your job, they're supposed to be preparing them to take over in these key spots so that in 4 years you have a new wave of young players, which is the nature of the game. Every sport, you have to have a new wave of players at all times sort of getting prepared and ready to take over. It's a little different in hockey than it is in like football or whatever, where there's no guaranteed contracts. They're bridge veterans, says Josh. I agree with that. So, yeah, Patrick says Forsberg wasn't Forsberg coming up. They traded Martin Erat to go get him from another team. He was traded away. So
I was literally about to say Yossi wasn't supposed to be Yossi either. Like, he was a 2nd round pick. Like, no one had hardly heard of this guy. So I
think the best one here so far that I completely agree with is Brando, which I think is the exact right way to look at this. a Dallas type rebuild was Barry Trotz's plan. Young prospects come in with veterans to support them, like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. Problem is, we don't have Dallas scouting. Their picks were later than ours, and I'll add to this, Brando, and have been way better over the last 5 years. And so I think that is actually the right thing to compare it to, the right strategy and the right explanation of Barry Trotz's vision. But I agree, our stars are only slightly better in some places and worse in others. And their scouting and their development and their draft picks have been far better to allow for that next wave of guys to step in. If I would have told fans, the average fan, that the Dallas Stars are one of the younger teams in the division and the Preds are one of the older teams in the division, I don't think many people would know that right now. In general, casual. I mean, I know most Preds fans know that, but I don't think casual fans would know that, that's how it's going. So, okay. I just wanted to conduct that exercise, Emma, because I do think there's a lot of, we shouldn't have done this. And I understand why people feel that way. But very few of those people, ourselves included, thought that way at the time. And I think another big chunk of them are not truly understanding what it takes. And I don't want to put words in their mouths because a lot of fans have thought this through. So I don't, but man, 3 or 4 bad years of very questionable lineups and a lot of mistake-prone hockey. Learning to be good is a big sacrifice to try to draft a bunch of high-level players that may or may not work. It's just not, you just don't flip a switch and do it. It's way, way harder. And that is not to make excuses for where this team is right now. That's not at all what I'm trying to do. People are going to get fired and lose their jobs if they don't win. Full stop. That's professional sports. But I did want to conduct the exercise because I think you have to envision what the lineup would be and what that would mean watching that every single night is what it is. So
I agree. And I still think it's going to be more than 3 to 4 years of bad hockey if you do that with no guarantee at the end.
Exactly. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. As more and more says, so damned if you do, damned if you don't, is the lesson. There you go. Basically, we all have so much to be thankful for this week. Huge games, of course. I do think I think we're going to wake up Sunday morning with a more clear understanding of where we're headed than I thought. And it could involve 3 straight wins over Philadelphia, Tampa, Minnesota. It could involve 3 more losses. More likely, it will involve a bad loss, a great win over Tampa, and then a really bad loss to Minnesota. That's probably that's based on what they've done so far. Emma, where can the good people find you, your work, your writing, your blathering? Where's that all happen?
My blathering. You can find my blathering on Twitter and Instagram, Emma_Lingan. I have made a Blue Sky account, but I haven't used it.
I'm going to follow you right now.
No, you're not going to find anything. I'm still waiting to see. I'm waiting to see if it, fizzles out like Threads did. But anyway,
there are almost 300 million people on Threads.
Yeah, and still no one uses it. Like people are on it, but they're not.
Well, apparently they like totally de-emphasize politics as like a topic. Like Facebook did the same thing. I think they and Instagram, everything with Meta, they've de-emphasized politics exclusively. Which again, I'm sure a lot of people love that. I am sure. Okay, Emma_.
No, see, remember we had this discussion last week.
Oh, you can't underscore?
I don't do underscores on Blue Sky. That's the other thing. So for my, brand synergy, Blue Sky is not great.
Stop.
So it's Emma Lingan. Boring. But anyway, I am on Blue Sky. You can follow me and you will see nothing because I haven't posted anything.
I can't wait.
Twitter, Instagram. Yes. You can find my work online at the Hockey News. You can also find me every Friday at Lower Broad Hockey blathering about what else is going on in the NHL because it's a lot more fun to talk about that than what's going on in Nashville right now.
Kevin, this is why you're a founding member. Threads is garbage. Blue Sky is not the same. Blue Sky is old Twitter is what it is. People are just nice. That's all I want. It's just people to be nice.
Listen,
just nice.
I'm not arguing the benefit of Blue Sky. I think that I like the concept. It's good. I would love to be off of Twitter, but you
can anytime. You have the power to do it. I'm not on there anymore.
it's not good for my career at the moment, unfortunately.
That-
It'd
the
be good
fact-
for my mental health,
The
but
fact that you think Twitter is tied to your successes in your career is the problem. Not your problem, but is the problem. Your career is going to be just fine because you're a great writer. Check her out on Fridays at lowerbroadhockey.com. And you're smart and you're talented and you're good, and Twitter ain't got nothing to do with it. So
I agree with all of that, but that's just the world that we live in now.
come on, skeeting up a storm over on Blueski. Come on over. Let's go. Let's go. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Put the mashed potatoes on toast and cold turkey sandwiches. Enjoy all of that. Some of you guys will be there in person on Friday to see the Tampa Bay win. I'm assuming they're going to lose to Philadelphia. They're going to beat Tampa, and they're going to lose to Minnesota. That's my prediction. So there you go. Otherwise, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you guys, all of you, for showing up and for hanging out, and for subscribing to Lower Broad Hockey, for going to Sinkers Beverages, for going to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, for watching this show. Rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up on the YouTube page, notifications, etc., etc. Emma, enjoy the movie theater, or as my daughter says, enjoy the movie Fiota. Enjoy it and have a good holiday weekend. Best to you and the fam. Otherwise, everybody out there, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys next week.